Welcome back. Why are Venice firefighters being forced to work in a building that is literally falling apart? It is not like Fire Station 1 is located in a remote part of town, out of sight, out of mind. It's on the same piece of property as City Hall. As Christopher Brantley just showed us, firefighters are being forced to work in the building with holes in the roof, mold from a shoddy AC unit, and rusted doors that can't even open or close. So does the city fix up a building that's falling apart or build a new fire station somewhere else, perhaps leading to longer response times? In any case, where will the money come from? And joining us for more is Assistant City Manager Len Bramble and our intrepid South County reporter Christopher Bramble. Christopher Bramble.
Brantley. Close enough.
Christopher, the city has set aside $1 million in the short term for what?
Basically, it's $1 million to emergency repairs, is I believe the way it's phrased. And that is if the roof does come collapsing down. That $1 million could put a new roof on it. And that also covers other parts of the fire department as well, anything else that needs to be replaced.
Len, the obvious question that people who are watching this might want to ask is, why would you put $1 million into a building that you're going to have to replace really soon?
Well, we need to be sure this current building is in suitable condition for the duration of its use until another building or replacement for this one might be determined.
And have you basically, do you have a game plan in terms of what needs to be fixed first?
Certainly our Public Works Director, John Veneziano, who I know Chris has spoken with, is developing that game plan and prioritizing the items that we need to give an appropriate level of attention to in order to get this building back in a suitable level of operation.
Christopher, why has this gone on for so long?
Well, you know, it's a lack of money, really, is what it is. And that assessment that John Veneziano and the Public Works Department had done was an assessment for all of the buildings. That includes City Hall, that includes all of the buildings the city owns. The worst one thus far is this Fire Station 1. It's just fallen out of whack because there's been no money to fix it up over all of these years.
I mean, the budgets have been that tight for so long that there was no capital plan able to be put into place to replace this building before this stage?
Yes, short answer is yes, that's correct. A lot of people don't remember, but during the recession, which was not that long ago, the city cut 1/3 of its workforce just to keep pace with everything. So we've cut a lot of cost, but now we're feeling the effect of those lean years with the condition of some of our capital assets, just like this.
Christopher, what is the attitude in Venice right now in terms of paying for this? Do you get the sense that residents, citizens would be good with paying a little bit more in terms of taxes to get a new, firehouse for their firefighters, or do they want the city to find somewhere in the budget to pay for this?
If we learned anything in the last election in November, we learned that the taxpayers are willing to spend money because they did approve 2 bonds for a new public safety center for the police department and for a road bond. So the taxpayers seem to be willing to pay for things. And it's really hard for anyone to really argue against giving money to first responders. These firefighters are working in a difficult building, but they themselves are fantastic first responders. And I believe everyone just about believes they should have a good place to work.
Len, as you talk to your colleagues from other communities, have many of them been faced with the same kind of situations that because of the Great Recession, some of these capital projects have had to be put off for this long a time, leading to circumstances like this?
Absolutely. It's something that's very difficult and challenging for local government when the resources just aren't there. You have to curb costs, and expenses of renovations like this are some of the good examples of those costs that get postponed or just not done.
And how has the fire department and the staff and the firefighters, the guys who answer those calls every day and every night, how have they dealt with this kind of situation, knowing what the facts are?
I think personally, I feel like they dealt with it exceedingly well. The conditions that I've seen over at Fire Station 1 are conditions that a lot of people would say are deplorable. I commend them for putting up with those conditions, but we really rightfully need to do some things to correct those current deficiencies and make it a suitable place to work.
All right, we are just getting started with our discussion, and we will continue. We'll have more on Firehouse 1 from our guests in a moment, right after we check the weather. Welcome back. Right now, firefighters in Venice are being forced to work in some pretty deplorable conditions. A moldy fire station with broken AC and holes in the roof. What's the plan and where will the money come from to do something about it? And joining us is Assistant City Manager Len Bramble and ABC 7 South County reporter Christopher Brantley. So let's talk about what the alternatives here. One idea that is being kicked around is the city buying the old classic steakhouse, which apparently went out of business recently, which the mayor believes that the city could get a good deal on. Len, where does that stand?
The mayor might be right. We might get a good deal on it, but I don't know. I look at that as like any potential site on which to rebuild Fire Station 1. They're all going to have pros and cons. That one will, as will the current site of Fire Station 1. We need to. They all need to go through due process, be properly evaluated for response time, the ability to enter and exit.
Right, and I wanted to get to response time in a second, but on the downside of that site, apparently it's pretty small, and the question is whether it could accommodate a fire station that is large enough to serve the city.
Certainly, and it's a busy, high-traffic area. It's just off of the Venice Avenue Bridge and Venice Avenue and 41. And it's a tight space. So, you know, put a building in there, then you have to have a room for a 100-foot ladder truck to be able to make a full swing around to pull into a garage because you don't want them backing in. And you'd have to have them pulling out in traffic all the time. And it's just, that would be a complicated spot for them. There are certainly a few other alternatives.
The other alternatives include building a new fire station out near Venice Airport. What is the pro and con of that?
While more land might be available there than other locations, that's not centrally located to the rest of the island, the center of the residential and commercial community. So that would hamper some of the responses.
So we're talking about a difference in response time. Has any, what are we talking about in terms of your average response time from the current fire station to something that may be out near the airport?
Well, you think a lot of residential communities, it's spread out all across the island, but you have, of course, all of downtown just at the corridor of where this current fire station is, and it's kind of like in the middle, really, of the island. So they can get to the south end of the island quickly if need be. They can get to the north end of the island quickly if need be, really right off of the main road off of Harbor Drive where they are now.
So, Len, where is the process right now? What is the process, and how quickly will it go?
Well, funding, of course, is a big key. That's part of the process. But when it comes to site evaluation and selection, that'll be on a separate track where we'll enlist the aid of others to help us properly evaluate all the identifiable alternative sites. So that'll be something that'll be coming up in the upcoming months.
What is going on right now to try to figure out not only the cost, but where the money will come from?
Well, a lot of the costs may be incurred, and if we have to buy land that we don't currently own. That's a huge cost and adds a lot to the cost of a fire station project. But a lot of unanswered questions at this point that we'll have to work through to develop answers to.
Including the funding source. And Christopher,
Yeah.
what are folks talking about here? Would this be similar to the projects last year in terms of taking out bonding?
It certainly could. The city, I don't believe there's any reason why the city couldn't ask for another bond, for $5-6 million, whatever they're going to specifically need for this. Of course, they have to determine, again, how much they're going to need first. And that will come with are we going to buy other properties, of course, as Len said, or are we going to level the building where it is now and rebuild there? That, of course, has its own problems because it could be several months before, it could be a year. I'm not a contractor, before the time that they level the building and, there's a grand opening. So where do you put a fire station in the meantime?
And while the building's being leveled, in that scenario, we're going to have to operate out of somewhere temporarily. So that would have to be determined as well.
What is, in terms of, you recovered from the Great Recession, I would imagine tax revenues have also recovered. So does the city have more money at its disposal for capital projects like this?
Well, it's certainly better than it was in the recession. Those monies are generally, there's about a year or more lag time before you realize the additional monies and ad valorem from growth, from new homes and things like that before you start seeing those
well, of course, we have
taxes.
so many homes being built right now,
Yeah.
so that could increase over the years.
It will.
And let me bring up a difficult issue, because there was discussion in the past about merging the fire department with the county. how would things have been different if that went through in terms of having the funds available to build a new fire station?
From everything that I've covered in that story, I don't think anything would be different because as I understand it, and please stop me if I'm wrong, Len, the county did not want to take over the fire department without the city of Venice putting a whole lot of money into it to kind of fix it up a bit. Because you can imagine the county doesn't want to take on this asset that is going to cost them millions and millions of dollars to rebuild or to do something of that effect.
So there was no easy answers here.
No easy answers. We wish that there were.
There are never easy answers.
And do you know what the, basically the temperature is among the city council in terms of does everybody recognize that this is a project that has to be done and it has to be done pretty soon?
I've spoken to almost all but one of them in passing over the last several times we've done this stories. And everybody seems to be in agreement that, of course, something needs to be done, whether it's rebuilding or fixing the current building and remodeling it. That, of course, is undetermined. But I think everybody certainly wants to keep a fire station on the island because, of course, it is, again, an island, 3 bridges. So, you can't have fire trucks having to come and go with bridges that go up, every 20 minutes or however often.
But so often when we do stories like this, there will be people who will write on Facebook, and they're probably doing so right about now, saying the city has to live within its means and find the fat in the city budget and take the money from there. Len, what would you say to those folks?
The money is really not there in the city budget today to rebuild Fire Station 1, to build a new fire station. We're going to have we're going to have to look for the adequate monies in order to do that.
Is it possible to say what the impact of having the fire station in its current condition is having on fire services in Venice?
I will say that I have not heard any complaint of wait times or anything like that. I personally have not. As I said before, our fire department is fantastic. They do a wonderful job, and I haven't heard any specific complaints.
And Len, that you mentioned before that you also have equipment, very expensive equipment that needs to be protected there, and obviously a leaky roof on fire trucks that costs millions of dollars is not a good thing here. I would imagine that plays a big part in terms of the immediacy of taking care of this, let alone the fact that you have firefighters who do a heroic job that deserve better.
I agree completely on both of those counts. We need to do a better job of protecting our equipment and our firefighters as they serve the public in the heroic way that they do.
And the 100-foot ladder truck, which is very expensive, over $1 million, that parks there. And the brand new fire truck, which was about $500,000 or so,
right.
that also parks there, along with one of Sarasota County's ambulances, which are also expensive.
Okay, let's take a quick break, and we'll be back with final thoughts in just a moment. So what is the plan to repair or replace Fire Station number 1 in Venice, which is falling apart, and where will the money come from? Our guest joining us right now for final thoughts. So, Len, again, where do we stand, and why is it important for the city to, one way or the other, figure out whether to rebuild it on its current site or nearby, or move someplace else?
Well, to try and answer that, I think first and foremost we need to fix the biggest problems with the current building, and then with the input from our council and direction from our council, we need to evaluate all the potential sites and move forward with that process if the decision is to replace Fire Station 1.
Play the part of a triage physician right now. Mm-hmm. What is your understanding in terms of what needs to be done first?
But things like the roof. The roof is in deplorable condition. The parts of the ceiling are. There's been deterioration to the walls. It's a 43-year-old building. And this had precious little attention, certainly in a renovation, given to it. And it's high time that we do those things and give it a reasonable life expectancy while we're working to replace it.
Christopher, this has been a story that you've said that you've been covering for a long time. Are you sometimes amazed that it's taken this long and still longer to do anything about it?
I'm amazed that when I first went down there and did my first story about 2.5-ish years ago, about this hole that we showed in the story, this hole in the roof, when I was back there, a week ago shooting this story, the hole was still there. I mean, in exactly the same way, and that's why we showed the video. I was very surprised that that is still there, and I was very surprised to see, in a kind of a cloudy, overcast day, you're seeing light come through, the roof, so you're seeing there's clearly opening.
Aside from your reporting on this, has this gotten enough attention down there?
I think it has a ton of attention right now. I mean, the city council is considering putting an impact fee just for the fire department itself to fix things up. That is still in the works. So I think a lot of people know about these issues. They just lack the money to throw at them to fix them.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. Before we go, we want to share with you what some of our viewers are saying about last night's topic, stagnant middle-class wages. President Trump tweeting this week, highest stock market ever, best economic numbers in years, unemployment lowest in 17 years, wages rising. All true, but wages only rose about a pathetic 1.2% over the last year, the chief economist for Glassdoor is saying. The fact is that economic gains are not being distributed evenly among workers. Anna on Facebook says housing has risen 60 to 75% since 2005, but wages have stayed the same or cut in some sectors just to keep your job. It is too unaffordable to even live anymore. Kay adds, we still need to see wages in mid-level jobs improve, as well as creation of more jobs with health benefits. And Davian says, Obama had 8 years. Trump has done more in 6 months than he did in 8 years. Someone said stock market only helps the rich, or 99%. Really, where do you think your 401k is invested? Get a skill if you want a raise. And less responds. A lot of good high-performing stock market is doing for people working and trying to survive financially. We're all in this together. Lashing out and turning this into a wrestling match is only going to cause greater division. Well, if you'd like to join the conversation on tonight's topic, just visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/news@7. And FYI, you can watch past discussions on demand. They're available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku.